I'm Mary Schumann. I'm a realtor here in the Twin Cities, and I make videos to help people get a good understanding of what it's like to live in Minnesota. If you're thinking about moving here, check out my free relocation guide with more information on the area. You can find that down in the description box below this video. If you're on a mobile device, just tap the title of the video and the description box will pop open. If I don't cover what you're curious about, just drop me a line or leave a comment. Okay, number one is Minnesota liquor laws. I moved here from Chicago, and I think the motto there was something like, keep everyone drunk so they don't notice the high taxes. There were very few constraints on where or when you could buy alcohol. I was really confused when I couldn't buy beer on Sunday here. Here in Minnesota, you won't be seeing people crawl home after being at the bar until 4 a.m. like you might in Wrigleyville in Chicago. Liquor can be served here Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. and on Sunday they hope that you hit the 8 a.m. service before you hit the bar. So they don't open liquor stores until 10 a.m. on Sunday, and they are open until 2 a.m. In 2017, the Minnesota legislature finally came to their senses and decided that adults should be allowed to decide for themselves if they wanted to buy beer on Sunday, and they allowed Sunday liquor store sales. They aren't going to make it super convenient for you, though. You will not be grabbing a bottle of wine when you go to the grocery store to buy the ingredients for your dinner. Nope. You need to go to an actual liquor store to buy your beverage. There are a lot of them, and they tend to locate close to grocery stores, but it still annoys me. Okay, taxes. Everyone's favorite word. All right, sales tax. I'm not really much of a shopper, but even I knew about the magic that is buying clothes in Minnesota. There are no taxes on clothing in Minnesota. People who shop at the Mall of America really love that. Other items that aren't subject to sales tax are groceries, prescriptions, and diapers. Everything else has a sales tax of 6.875%, but counties and municipalities may add other taxes of their own. Okay, harkening back to Chicago, it was about a 10% premium to buy a burrito after you had your beer in Chicago. Can you feel the indigestion? Property taxes. Okay, I will continue to compare Minnesota favorably to Illinois here. When we moved here, people would frequently make complaints about property taxes. We were confused since the homes we were looking at were like twice the size and half the taxes. Lake County, Illinois has an effective tax rate of about 2.83%, while Hennepin County, where Minneapolis is at 1.28%. So you can see why we were thrilled. For an average $300,000 home, that is a big difference. In Illinois, the tax bill for that would be about $8,490 per year versus here in Minneapolis or Hennepin County, $3,840. The median home price in the Twin Cities metro area is about $309,000 today. So let's look at taxes regionally and at a state level. Here's how we compare to our immediate neighbors, and we look pretty good. On property taxes, Minnesota is 1.08%. The national average is 1.07%. North Dakota has an extremely low effective tax rate at 0.99%, while South Dakota is at 1.22%, Iowa 1.53%, Wisconsin 1.68%. All right, let's talk about sales tax with vehicles. So sales taxes are applied when you buy a major item like cars, but a different tax that I'm thinking about right here is the vehicle registration tax, the price you pay when you get your tags each year in Minnesota. The least amount that you'll pay is $44. The minimum charge is $25 plus a few other fees for cars that are over the age of 11. Minnesota takes the MSRP of a car and reduces it by 10% each year to determine the amount that's taxable for the renewal. So if you buy an expensive car, you'll expect to pay a bit more for tags as well. Airports. Minnesota actually has 4 international airports, and ranked by size, they are the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport in the Twin Cities, This airport is enormous. Nearly 40 million people fly into or out of MSP every year, which is over 400,000 flights. 87,000 people are employed in some way through MSP Airport. 11 major airlines fly into MSP, including Delta, American, and United, which have major presences in Terminal 1. And Terminal 2 is largely dominated by Southwest Airlines. If you have kids, there's a fun drive-up viewing area where you can watch the planes take off and land. It has parking and picnic tables, and it can be an entertaining lunchtime activity with or without kids. Number 2 is Duluth International Airport, where Delta, United, and Sun Country Airlines fly into and out of. If you fly out of or into Duluth, you'll most likely be connecting in Detroit, Minneapolis, or Chicago. Our third international airport is the Greater Rochester International Airport. They have United, Delta, American, Southwest, and JetBlue. Those are the major carriers, but there are many others. They have many flights into and out of this airport every day, and I imagine that this airport exists mainly in support of the world-renowned Mayo Clinic, which is also located in Rochester. Finally, we have the International Falls International Airport. International Falls is a smaller city, and they have an international airport because they border directly with our neighbor to the north, Canada. They have daily connecting flights to MSP Airport on Delta Airlines. I'm super charmed by the fact that the website touts the fact that they have vending machines. It's a small airport, but I imagine that it's critical to that region of the state. I'm a fan of small airports because the hassle level is so much smaller and you're treated like a person, not a herd animal. Gardening. This was a tough one for me, even though I came from a northern state, Illinois. I love perennials and I like to have homegrown tomatoes, and the lower third of Minnesota falls into 4A for gardening. Plan on controlling your urge to plant flowers until the middle or the late side of May, and know that mid-September to early October is likely the latest that you can plan to see tender annuals survive. If you decide to plant perennials, I would recommend that you be extra cautious and select a hardiness to zone 3. If you really like to have homegrown vegetables and you're thinking of planting things like tomatoes and peppers, you should plan to either start them inside or buy plants that have already had a head start so that they have time to produce for you before the frost. Of course, cool weather crops really have a happy life here. So if you like cabbage and hardy greens like kale and Swiss chard, they'll do well. I have also had great success with herbs, even planted from seed. The seasons. I've said it before, but one of the things that I truly love about Minnesota is that there are 4 true seasons here. I love them all, but I'm usually ready for the next one when the time comes. The seasons are pretty prompt and they take their place right on schedule about every 3 months, even though sometimes a season can feel like it's eternal. For example, if we have a really harsh winter that doesn't seem to want to quit. But one thing I know is that while Minnesota has a reputation for cold, don't be surprised in the summer when it gets super hot and humid. Spring turns to summer like someone flipped a switch here. We have a pretty good stretch of days in the summer that are in the high 80s and low 90s. You may not need your AC all summer, but there are days when you'll be very grateful to have it. Okay, natural disasters. We're going to stick with the weather theme here. What should you be prepared for? Other areas of the country have things that they're known for, like California wildfires, hurricanes on the coast, etc., but those concerns aren't for us here. Things that we worry about and maybe hope for, depending on how old your roof is, are hailstorms, severe thunderstorms, and tornadoes. I personally want a basement to hide in when tornado season is in full swing, and most homes here have them. If you don't have a basement, head to an interior room without windows if possible. A bathroom with tiled walls, get into the tub, and if you have a mattress or something like that that you can put over your head to protect yourself, even better. In Minneapolis and much of Minnesota, we test our tornado sirens every month on the first Wednesday. This day is my dog's worst nightmare, and it happens regularly. You should be aware of what day it is and know that we never actually have tornadoes at 1 p.m. on the first Wednesday of the month, or at least we hope not, because no one gets alarmed at that particular alarm. Two sides of the same natural disaster coin are flood and drought. There really isn't much you can do about drought, but knowing if you're buying in a floodplain can be very helpful when you're looking at property and knowing if you need to have flood insurance or not. Our multiple listing service gives us the flood status of lots, but if you'd like to check for yourself, you can go to the FEMA website and have a look. Okay, roads and speed limits. Unlike South Dakota, which basically has a sign at the border saying that the speed limit is 80 and don't let us catch you exceeding that or you're in deep doo-doo, Minnesota has a lot of different rules about how fast you can go and when. On rural interstates, the speed limit is 70 miles per hour. Urban expressways and interstates, it drops down to 65 miles per hour, and other main highways are at 55 miles per hour. When you enter an urban area, you can plan on the speed limit being about 30 miles per hour, unless you're on a neighborhood street in Minneapolis, in which case you better know that it's 20. We have a lot of potholes here because of the changing weather conditions, and you should keep an eye out for them unless you don't mind getting a flat tire or having your teeth come down hard on your tongue. People joke about there being 2 seasons here, winter and road construction, but there's actually only 1 season, and that's road construction. We thought moving here would mean moving to a place that had a good handle on snow removal, but I found that it varies widely. In the city of St. Paul, it can feel like every man for himself, whereas suburbs and outer areas that are handled by the state tend to do a better job of clearing with plows and salt, or a combination of salt and grit. I'm recording this in peak grit season as the snow has melted and it leaves behind a lot of the grit, and I mean lots of grit. Unavoidable and annoying, but I appreciate the traction in winter, I guess. Hot tip, get an all-wheel drive car that has some weight to it and you'll probably be okay driving on our roads. Okay, staying warm or cool. I've been in other parts of the country that seem to rely on electricity to provide heat, but here in Minnesota, we primarily use natural gas and forced air furnaces. If you have a forced air furnace, you're also likely to have or be able to easily install central air conditioning. Older homes might use radiant heat either through baseboard radiators, radiant floor heat, or the traditional style cast iron radiators that you may have seen. I'm a fan because it's a constant, really warm heat rather than a blower that's clicking on and off all the time. But there are some downsides. One of those downsides is that there is no ductwork available for an AC installation, and also that the air may get very dry in your home. If you do have radiant heat and you still want AC, your choices are the old school window units, or you can have an attic condenser unit and they will put little round ducts in the ceiling for that. Another option is what's called a mini split, and that's kind of a little rectangle shaped AC unit that's installed on the wall. Retrofitting an old home can be a little pricey, and it's important to think about that when you're considering how you want to live in a home. Many people in Minnesota also have wood stoves in their house. We have one. They're a nice addition for mood and heat, but it's totally an extra. It's something that we enjoy, but it's not how we heat our house. The beauty of a wood stove is that the heat stays in the home, and they're made of cast iron, which retains and radiates heat. So you get that glow and warmth without the heat loss that you can have with a traditional fireplace. What else are you curious about? Does this seem different from where you live now? Let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.